Hi everyone. So today, thank you very much for coming to the last Psychic Circle for the year. So the reason why I am stopping Psychic Circle is because I'm actually currently filming some new content so that we can reach out to like more people. So the content will be very similar to what we always explore in like Psychic Circle, except that it will be on YouTube with some exclusive content on our own like website under the branding of the other realm. However, we will still be holding regular like online events as well as some offline events and hopefully some retreats in 2023. So while we're hoping that you could join us for those events like then, but in order for me to prepare for them properly, I have to stop working on Psychic Circle for a while. But we will be launching the new YouTube channel called The Other Realm on the 12th of December this year. So please watch out for our notices then. Okay. So thank you for joining me today. So we are actually talking about core values and how they actually maximize our potential and spirituality. So why is it important for us to look at core values? Because this is not something that people usually like think about. Most people in our life think about like setting goals, what is it that we want to achieve and all, but not a lot of us spend time thinking about core values. But core values are actually really important if we want to maximize our potential. Why? Because they kind of form the foundation of our whole sort of being. Mainly because they help to form our core identity, and they are the most essential part of our core identity, and helps to center, balance, and ground us, especially when we are thrown amidst like environmental chaos or when things are actually really, really uncertain. Our core values are the one thing that can actually help us to hang on. Okay. It also helps us to decide what it is that we want to achieve. So basically where we want to arrive at. And it's not just one arrival point. So it's not like, okay, success means this. If you have strong core values, then you basically can create milestones in your own life so that you can have many like achievements of success and also happiness, because life is not just about success, especially the conventional definition of success like wealth and everything. Is also about what makes us happy. And if we are not strong in our core values, it makes it very difficult to know what really makes us happy. So that's why we always go back to core values, because the moment we are in alignment with our core values, naturally we are happy. Core values also give us perspective and a starting point for evaluation. So how do we determine if people around us are actually relating to us in a way that is comfortable to us, or in a way that is aligned with us? How do we decide who do we work with and who do we stay away like from? So core values actually help us with that. Okay. They also can form the foundation of motivation, because, for example, if your core values is courage, then you would actually be it will be very easy for you to consistently put yourself out of like your comfort zone, because your core value of courage motivates you to move in that direction. Okay. And understanding our core values is the beginning of understanding what our potential is, and therefore what it is that we're potentially able to achieve. And of course, at the highest like level, we want to work with our spirituality, which is why I say that core values leads eventually to maximization of potential and spirituality. Okay. So a little bit about our core identity. So usually, for most humans, we develop our core identity around the age of 2 to 3, where we first start to develop a sense of self. So this is where we start to differentiate ourselves from the people around us. It's when we start to become conscious that, oh, I'm male, I'm female, I'm young, I'm a toddler, I'm, old, or this person is old, And a lot of times it also sort of like helps us to start to understand the kind of interaction between us and our family, namely our parents or siblings or grandparents, from the age 3 to 4, that's when we start developing skills and like talents. So it's very interesting because a lot of you, if you watch like the news or something, sometimes you hear of geniuses or people or like prodigies like starting to play the piano at age 3 or 4. Yeah, so this is why, because we all start developing skills and talents at around that age. At the age of 5 to 6, that's when we start to be able to understand the kind of social dynamics around us. And this is where we look at what is the social norms versus what's our own private like identity, and what it is that we can show to people, and versus what is it that we keep private to ourselves. So age 5 to 6 is also when we often develop a persona of like how we want to present ourselves to the general public. So I remember that at the age of 5 to 6, the persona that I actually chose is that of like the teacher's pet, I think, because all my friends tell me that, oh my God, you're a teacher's pet. And I realized it's true. And I started to think about, when did I start becoming a teacher's pet? And I realized that, oh, it's about 5 to 6. So that's about right. Because at 5 to 6 years old, that's when I developed that persona, which I want to present like to the world like at large. Okay. In the teenage years, that's when we start actually starting to compare perspectives and starting to be able to take the perspectives of other people versus ourselves. And it's also when we start to sort of understand the whole point of social identity, of belonging to a group, of like being team oriented. Again, my own experience really kind of like reflect this, because up until the age of about 11, I was never really keen on any like team sports or team activities. In fact, like I prefer to do things like on my own. But somehow from 12 years old onwards, I started to take more of an interest in socializing with people, with being part of a team. So I joined, for example, the Chinese orchestra. I was part of like a dance group, and I started sort of like playing basketball and stuff like that. So that I start to really integrate with people in the society around me, and started becoming more aware of where my place is in society. Okay, so why is it that core values actually drive potential and spirituality? If you look at this Maslow's motivation like model, you'll find that we have different levels of needs. Okay? So at the level of deficiency needs, we are in a space whereby we are not able to consider anything outside of like ourselves. Okay? Where we are very much still trapped in what I would call like scarcity consciousness, where you're thinking more about your physical needs, you're thinking more about safety and security, you're thinking more about like the kind of like love that you need, popularity, and people to like validate you. So when you're still residing in deficiency needs, it's a very kind of self-centered energy. So you're not really able to think beyond that. Okay, so and this is where sometimes you don't really think about core values like at all. However, if you want to move upwards into growth needs, as you move through cognitive needs, aesthetic needs, self-actualization, and transcendence, then that's when core values become really important. Because in order for you to be able to, for example, self-actualize, you need to know what are you trying to actualize. So therefore, you need to understand what it is that form your identity, and how can you then maximize this identity so that you can achieve self-actualization. So this is actually why it is really important that we understand our core values, because otherwise we go into we keep going back to a very self-centered default sort of behavior, and we are no longer aware of our dynamics with the outside world and with the people around you, with the relationships that you form, and that actually causes us to have a lot of blind spots which we are not able to overcome, and we don't even understand what we're really capable of. Therefore, there's no way that we can actually maximize our potential and achieve spirituality, which is basically at the top of the pyramid under transcendence. Okay. When we talk about core values actually prevent us from falling back into default behavior. Default behavior basically comes from conditioning, from the kind of environment that we've lived in, and then based on our own like abilities and qualities and attributes that we are born with, how we respond to the external world. Okay. In cognitive science, a schema is basically a sort of set of as a knowledge structure that actually helps us to interpret how we want to interact with the world like around us. So it allows us to kind of automatically respond to something in a particular way, because this has been, through our own sort of understanding and experience, the best way to respond to a certain situation. Okay. However, schemas can actually be changed and reconstructed throughout your life. So it's a question of unlearning and relearning. And why are we talking about schemas? It's because schemas form the basis of our default behavior. So for example, if you grow up in a household which is somewhat violent, then you learn that if somebody screams at you, you scream right back. Okay. If you grow up in like a household that is very, very loving, then you learn that if somebody gets angry, you hold the space for that person to vent, and then you act like with compassion. Okay, so these are default behavior which we can actually sort of classify under schemas, and schemas actually then cause you to form a certain pattern of behavior, which after a while it becomes kind of like a habit, and you don't even realize that you're doing it. Okay, so what happens is that for some people who have grown up in bad conditions, or who have endured sort of certain trauma in their like early childhood days, which is basically before the age of 10 years old, they form actually what we call early maladaptive schemas. So this actually is a combination of limiting beliefs about like ourselves, our relationships, and the world around us. Okay, and it also then influences like our self-image, expectations about what it is that we deserve like in life, and also the kind of relationships that we form like with people. So for example, if you actually have really bad like sort of experience and trauma in early childhood, you might end up not be able to interact with people or form relationships where you are able to trust the other person sort of easily, because you're always thinking that the person's going to hurt you, you know. And if you have this kind of like a schema, you end up actually filtering all your experience and relationships and exposure through this filter. So for example, no matter how trustworthy your partner like is, you might suspect your partner of cheating on you if, for example, your father, you had found out that your father had cheated on like your mother, you know. Or if you have sort of like been in a childhood whereby you are consistently judged and criticized, and everything that you do is being pointed out and judged as right or wrong, you might actually end up having relationships like that, where you feel that that is the right way of having a close relationship, that you are able to judge the person instead of like allowing. Okay. Early maladaptive schemas actually, as I said, develop in early childhood, which is basically before the age of 10, and then it continues to sort of evolve in our teenage years, but it is actually persistent because at that point where you reach adulthood, it's in your subconscious, and it drives certain decisions which could involve self-sabotage and self-punishment without you even realizing that it's there. Okay. However, this kind of schemas are often triggered in adulthood in certain situations where we kind of where we have lived through it when we were a kid. So for example, if you have been in a very violent household whereby your parents have exerted absolute authority over you, then and you find that when they want to hit you, you have to stand still and let them hit. This becomes a pattern of behavior such that in adulthood, when you are faced with danger or faced with violence, you tend to freeze. Okay. So I have quite a different experience because when I was young, I stayed with my grandmother and my grandfather, and they are really quite opposites. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, is the most kind and compassionate person ever, and my maternal grandfather is extremely violent. So I still remember when he would throw his ashtray at us. And it wasn't even because we did anything. We're just children playing, and maybe we irritated him, and he would throw his ashtray at us. And what my sister and I, being very active children who love to run about, would do is we make it into a game. So every time we annoyed my grandfather and my grandfather threw the ashtray at us, we would play a game where we would avoid it or duck it, and then see how narrowly we kind of miss being hit by it. And I realized that this pattern of behavior, which I developed in childhood over many years, was really helpful in adulthood because I was very good at dodging. So whenever there was danger or whatever, it's I always have this instinct or eyes at the back of my head where I could dodge it really quickly without even looking at it. So I very seldom got hit by anything or by anyone, So so that was an example of maybe a good schema and automatic sort of behavior. But there are also bad ones, because if you were to freeze whenever somebody hits you, then in adulthood it is likely that when you encounter danger, which is similar to the situation in childhood, but maybe worse, because your parents technically don't really want to hurt you, but if you're an adult and you're in a dark alley or something, you really have no way of telling, then what happens is that you actually freeze rather than doing the right logical thing, which is to run. Okay. So that's why it's important to always understand what your default behavior is and try to reconstruct it so that you always sort of are able to act in your own best interest. Okay? So one way of actually correcting this or unlearning and relearning it is to once again go back to our values. Okay. So I'm going to skip this and look at values and virtues. Okay. So what are some of the values? Because sometimes people ask, okay, what are values and what are some examples of values? So I've actually listed down some key areas of values and virtues. So the first one I feel is sort of wisdom. And the value of wisdom is basically one whereby you find it, you're always very curious, you always want to gain knowledge, and not only do you want to acquire knowledge, you want to be able to apply it in practical and creative ways. So some of the key virtues and values under the core value of wisdom is creativity, curiosity, open-mindedness, love of learning, and perspective. Okay. So if you choose wisdom as one of the values, then you're somebody who's probably more of a thinker and like a creator. And so you really want to examine, if this is your core value, how closely does your current life adhere to this? So are you in a position whereby you're able to consistently think of new ways to do things, you know? Are you able to be curious? Are you able to be open-minded? Are you able to learn new things all the time? And how about like being able to have some perspective? Okay. So a practical way of using this is to use it to evaluate how far away are you from happiness. So for example, if wisdom is one of your core like values in life, but you're in a really boring job, which like you basically are doing the same exact thing day in, day out, there's no room for change, no room for innovation, etc., then you have deviated so far away from your core value of wisdom that it's literally impossible for you to be happy. Okay. Now, the next value, core value that we want to talk about is courage. So people who value courage, or who have positioned courage as one of their core values, they actually have persistence and determination that allows them to overcome obstacles and accomplish sort of like goals, despite any sort of like resistance that they feel internally or opposition that they face externally. Okay. So some of the character strengths that is associated with courage is basically honesty, bravery, persistence, and zest. Okay. So if you have positioned courage as one of like your core like values, but yet you find that you're a people pleaser. You don't dare to tell people what you really think. You don't really dare to express like your opinion. You know, when you're faced with difficulty and challenges, you tend to run away and hide rather than going forward and just bravely like confronting it. You find that you give up like really easily. Then you're unlikely to be in a happy space, because having position courage as one of your core values, you're completely living your life in an opposite like way. Okay. So if you decide to position courage as one of your core values, then you want to make sure that you are expressing your own power and truth. You are embracing sort of like challenges and being able to put them into perspective as just part of your experience. You have determination and persistence to finish what you start, and also you have this approach to life whereby you are excited and energetic about trying like new things, or just living life and enjoying it in general. Okay. Another sort of like core value that you can consider is that of humanity. So people who place humanity as one of their core values tend to really want to take care of other people. Okay. They love nurturing people. They love sort of like interacting and socializing like with people. They tend to have very extensive network of friends, and they feel like people energize them in general. Okay. So if you are one of these people who place humanity as a core value, then you want to make sure that in your life you're living it like with kindness, with love, and with social intelligence, which is easy if you're an empath, because you become very aware of what other people's like emotions are, and also what their agendas are as well. Another core value which is important for quite a lot of people is that of justice. So people who are strong in sort of like justice tend to believe that the balance giving and receiving needs to be even, or somewhat even, in if you want to have a healthy community. So some of the virtues under justice is fairness, whereby you treat everybody the same, whether they are poor or rich or whatever, and also you believe strongly in leadership, organizing activities for a community and executing it, and you believe in actually teamwork, which is working well with other people as a group or a team. Okay, so this is and justice sometimes also makes it one whereby you feel you can mobilize people and you can work with other people, and it's about sharing rather than really taking the credit like for yourself. Okay. So if you have justice as one of your core values, then you want to make sure that you're living your life actually like with fairness, and I think this fairness is really important because it's not just about giving, it's also about receiving. And one of the strongest qualities of fairness is to be able in your life to be very clear about the whole dynamic of giving and like receiving. Okay. The next core value I want to talk about is temperance. So temperance is basically about discipline and like self-control. So it is virtue that allow you not to indulge in excesses that could be actually bad like for you. So no binging of food, no over drinking, no excessive smoking, nothing like that. Okay. So the virtues that's under temperance, which you can actually position as part of your core values as well, is forgiveness, whereby you're able to let go of the hurt that people have actually done like to you, and you're able to forgive them. Also modesty, letting like your accomplishments speak for themselves instead of feeling a need to keep boasting like about it. Also prudence, whereby you always sort of like consider greatly, you consider a lot and discern and aim to make good choices so that you do not do anything that you might regret. And also about self-regulation, which is basically about being in control, being disciplined, and setting parameters like for yourself. The final core value is that of like transcendence. So transcendence is actually a spiritual like a value. So it's actually about the belief that you can connect with a higher power, be it God, the universe, or even sort of certain religions that provide like meaning, purpose, and understanding in your life. So people who put transcendence as one of their core values often also include as part of their values appreciation of beauty, which is basically being able to see, notice, and appreciate the positive light in people, and in not just people, but like everything, objects, situations, etc. We also talk about gratitude as a value under transcendence. So this is about taking time to express thanks, being always grateful and thankful for the good things that's happened to you and the blessings that have come into your life, and also the value of hope, whereby you are believing that good things are possible and you actually work towards making good things and the positive things like happen, and maybe you might be preparing for worst case scenario, but you expect actually like the best. Okay, so bear in mind that hope doesn't mean like an unrealistic like optimism. It's not that. When you have hope, you can have hope even in like the darkest light of like times and like moments, like when things are really bad for you and you just feel like, okay, I can get through this, I expect the best, and I'm working to get out of this mess that I've gotten myself into. That actually is hope. Humor also comes under transcendence, which is being able to appreciate fun and laughter like in life, and sort of being able to laugh and smile freely and making other people laugh and smile freely and engaging with people on a level whereby you're not being too serious, but you're also not being like super frivolous like either. Okay. And of course, spirituality, whereby you firmly believe that life has a highest purpose, there is a highest good, and that there is a meaning to your life. That you're not like born just waiting to pass your life aimlessly until the time you leave this earth. Okay. Yeah. So with all this, oops, here we go. So when it comes to sort of like the core values, now that you have seen like all this like different like core values, it's actually good for you to think about what your values are, because this is really the first step to understanding your own potential. When you are very clear what your values are, you would know what your potential is and what can make you happy. And when you are able to see those three things, it becomes really easy for you to now start putting together a plan to maximize your potential, and from there to move into a more sort of like spiritual like life, which is still practical. So we're not talking about going to an ashram or becoming a hermit or like meditating for like 5 hours a day or anything like that. It's more about being conscious and aware every single moment of your life, such that you form better relationships, you interact better with the world, you're able to make better choices like for yourself, you know. So that's actually the best way of using core values to be able to maximize your potential, and thereby, you know, achieving transcendence and becoming much more spiritual. Okay. So I've come to the end of today's sort of like presentation. So as I said, today is the last day that we're doing Psychic Circle, but the other realm content channel will be up really soon. We're planning to launch on the 12th of December this year. So watch out for the news of the launch, and we hope that you can join us and support my new sort of the other realm YouTube channel content. In the meantime, if you want to, you can follow us on IG at ADL Holistic, or you can watch us on YouTube under the Lumiere. So today's presentation will be uploaded there. Thank you. So that's the end of today's presentation. I'm gonna stop share now, and then we're gonna see if anybody have any questions or something that they might want to share or ask. Okay. Okay. Hi, Jeannie. Hi, Amanda. Okay. Anything that you would like to ask like today, or about the presentation, or anything else?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi,
So,
Amanda. Yes.
yeah, this thing about the values and virtues, I mean, you keep saying about we decide which one is going to be our value out of this. Is it 5 or 6?
Six
Okay,
core.
6 core. But we should, they're very broad. I mean, under one, then there are quite a number of virtues or strengths. So we should try to decide on one, not more than that, right?
Oh no, you can have several. So you can have a combination. So what happens is that I think we have to be self-responsible and believe that we are in control. So therefore, what happens is, out of like the 6 like core values and the virtues, you can actually pick out a combination. So for example, you can pick out 1 or 2 under transcendence, 1 or 2 under courage, and all, and then this can form like your core values. And then there comes the difficult part, which is to test it against your experience. So for example, let's say you choose forgiveness as one of your core values, okay? But then you find that everybody who has like ever like hurt you, you feel like you need to get back at them, and you always do something to get back at them. Okay, then therefore your own experience tells you that forgiveness is not something that you do like very well. In which case, you now have a decision whereby, do you stick to forgiveness and work on your schemas and behavior to change it, and therefore achieve a state where forgiveness is now really part of a core value? Or do you switch core value and accept that, okay, you know what, I can't forgive like people, because I like revenge better than forgiveness or something, and therefore I will not actually do any. I will not actually sort of like take forgiveness as my sort of values anymore. And now what I'll do is I will take justice, fairness, for example. So you can test it against your own experience, and then decide whether is this core value really suitable for you. But most of us tend to be attracted to values that are already inherent in us, in our behavior, in our life experience, etc. So it's actually good to test it with your real life, test it against your real life that way.
From the workshop in August, so I slept during those two virtues, I think, or two views.
Which one? Which
one? The last two, I think. Oh no, sorry.
Temperance?
No, it was not.
Temperance and
no.
Temperance
Okay.
and transcendence?
No, not that. Sorry. I forgot. That one was the other topic.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's fine, because sometimes because of what we have gone through in our conditioning, we may actually have a resistance against certain like core values. Okay, so for example, if you were very spoiled by your parents, like when you were young, then self-regulation could be a problem. Self-regulation meaning controlling your excesses and everything, because since young you have never been taught to or required to do that. So then that might actually become a problem like for you. Yeah, but it doesn't make you better or worse. It's just that if you understand what your core values are, you can then determine what success means to you, what happiness means to you, and therefore you can then start to put together a plan where you can set certain milestones for yourself and say, okay, I'm going to reach success by this time, and I'm going to do what and what by when. Yeah.
Thank you. Wait. Very short. The one about that Maslow's hierarchy of
yes needs. Yeah.
So we can be at the bottom and we can also be at the top. Like we have.
No, so usually if you're at the bottom, you are not at the top. You can't be simultaneously both. Okay. The Maslow hierarchy of needs determines that you move through the pyramid to the top. Only after, so for example, if you are okay, let me just share it so that I can so that it becomes easier.
We've got cognitive needs, aesthetic needs, and all that. Maybe if there's a blind side, then you just don't do anything about the things at the bottom.
No, it's not that you don't do anything at the bottom. You must have already fulfilled those needs in order to move up. So if you look at this, okay, there is so physiological needs and safety needs. Okay, so for example, if you are hungry and you are homeless, that's under, and you're fearing like, in danger of your life, maybe you're in a war-torn zone or something, you are in this level of safety and psychological needs. You're not going to care whether you have art or music to listen to, you know what I mean? It's like you won't like bother. You won't think that, okay, it's like I have no food, I am like really hungry, but I still need to like be very fashionable. Like it doesn't happen. You wouldn't do that. So therefore, the psychological this sort of like physiological needs and moving upwards, you literally move upwards through it. So you can't actually have a situation whereby you are in you have problems with safety and physiological, and yet you are thinking about transcendence. Literally impossible. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Hi, Jeannie. Mm. Okay, so EY actually has a question. Hello, is there any way to be certain of our true core values? If I don't understand myself or like you have shared, due to certain conditioning, we may have a wrong understanding of our true self. Okay, so yes, I did. There is a way to be certain about your true core values, but it takes investigation and it takes actually quite a lot of like trial and error. Okay, so most of the time we begin by observing ourselves. When we observe ourselves, we can usually tell what are some of our normal patterns of behavior. So, for example, what makes you angry? What makes you emotional? Those are usually a good start to understand what are some of your values. So for example, if you see somebody being bullied and you feel upset about it, okay, then very likely justice is one of your core value. Okay, but it's just that which aspect of justice, because sometimes I would say that our core values are very much linked to our emotions. So our emotions actually indicate the truity of our core values. So for example, if you think that your core value is sort of like leadership, okay, but you have no inclination to mobilize people, or you don't even like people, okay, then maybe what you are like really believing in is authority and not so much leadership. The leadership is about mobilizing like people, in which case your real life experience will tell you whether or not leadership is actually one of your value. Okay, so for example, let's say if you sort of like pick, I don't know, self-regulation as like one of your core value, but then you realize that you don't sleep at regular times, you don't eat at regular times, you like to do whatever you like when you like it, you can spend hours doing like certain things, you go out drinking like with your friends and all, then you can be certain that your natural instinct is not self-regulation. So even though you believe self-regulation to be a core value that you need, but if your behavior actually deviates too much from it, then you might need to change core value, or try and find out why is it that you have this behavior that is in excess or that's excessive, that's the opposite of self-regulation, even though you want self-regulation to be your core value. Okay, so the only way to really be certain about what your core values are is to experimentation, trial and error, and a lot of observation and investigation of like yourself. Yeah. So hopefully that answers like your question. Yeah. Okay. What if our emotion is due to certain like conditioning? Okay, yes, that is like possible. So for example, like a lot of us actually respond badly to, let's say, judgment, maybe because because in childhood we have been judged like a lot. Okay, so if you are responding sort of like to judgment, then what you want to do is to investigate like where does that emotion actually lead you to. Okay, so for example, let's say you have let me see. So let's say you have this uh your original sort of core value is one of like courage, which includes, let's say, honesty. Yeah, which includes honesty. So what then actually happens is that if you find that you're very afraid to like speak up, and you have a great fear, or you get very emotional when you're thinking about sort of like speaking up, but you still have that inclination to speak up, then you, even if you did not finally speak up, you can be sure that honesty is actually one of your core values. It's just that conditioning has tempered you to such a extent that you find it hard to verbalize it. Okay, because when we talk about honesty and everything, we're actually talking about what is in your heart. And even though conditioning can suppress like you, it can't change you completely. So for example, if you're somebody that believes in like justice and fairness, okay, due to circumstances, you may not really be able to exert or show that like to the world, but in your heart, you actually may feel like, okay, things are fair or is unfair, or and you may be very particular about what's fair, what's unfair. So in which case, fairness could actually be one of like your core like values as well. Justice could be one of your core values. It's just that in your life, you have been taught not to speak up and not to sort of like to have fear about striving for justice. But that doesn't make you in your heart not want justice. Okay. Yeah. So hopefully that's clear like for you. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so we have time for maybe one last question. Anybody else wants to share or have a question? Okay. Okay. If not, I think we can end tonight. So thank you very much for like the support of like Psychic Circle, like for I think the past like 1 over year. And I think I'm very happy that I got like really good like responses all throughout like Psychic Circle. And the reason why we are taking a temporary break is because I wanted to produce like more content. However, we do plan to bring Psychic Circle back sometime like next year, but together with the other realms of content, so that it becomes a little bit more fun and like exciting. And also, I guarantee you, we're producing really interesting like content for the other realm, which I think everybody here like will enjoy. So watch out for our announcement about like the launch, and I think we are probably going to have an online event for the launch. So we hope like you all would be able to join us then. Okay. All right. So thank you very much, everyone. And we will see you again on Psychic Circle probably like next year. And in the meantime, we hope that you would like come and like support our channel when it's launching on the 12th of December. Okay. And we'll be in contact with some of you privately, like or via WhatsApp. Those are my WhatsApp. Okay. Thank you. And
everyone.
bye everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.